listening to Game On DC, your home for local gaming and esports news in the DMV. Find the show on social media at Game On DC and by using the hashtag GoDC. Without further ado, here are your hosts, John and Joey.
What is up, DMV? And yes, we are starting the show off right. Absolutely love it. We're going to get that fixed real quick. Awesome. Gotta love it when OBS does that. What is up, DMV? Of course, if you listen to the podcast, you just did not see that epic NA production right there. But nonetheless, welcome to Game On DC, the show that is dedicated to you, the gamers and esports fanatics, right here in the East Coast capital of esports. My name is John Fiasco Barman, always joined by royalty. It's going to be a royal episode today, Joey. The king of the courtside, Joey, courtside king McDermott. Joey, what is up, buddy? Happy Monday.
Well, our boxes were not up, that's for sure.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, it's been a Monday, John. It feels like it's always a Monday when we do this show, but that's because it's recorded on Monday. So it's been an interesting start to the work week. Lots going on this week. But overall, it's a Monday. It's after Halo Infinite. I'm sad it's gone, but it was great getting to test it this weekend. As far as DMV esports go, we had some good things and some not so good things happen this past weekend. So we'll be diving into all that and looking forward to what we can have some hopes and dreams for a few of these different teams as we move forward as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be really, really exciting here today. Joey, we have a fantastic show. We're going to be touching on the Justice and their weekend here at because I got it wrong like 15 times on the tweet today, just double checking here. The Countdown Cup here in week one, and then we'll do a recap of WizDG because Joey, talk about a team on fire. WizDG right now, they are just absolutely money currently in the NBA 2K League. And then, of course, back-to-back weeks, Joey, we have an interview, and it's eMLS Pro for DC United King CJ. Super, super excited for that as well, Joey. So let's go ahead. We'll take care of a little bit of homework here. The live show obviously is where all the fun happens, but don't worry if you're not able to watch the live show here on Twitch on Monday night. The podcast version of the show is available on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and Stitcher, and pretty much everywhere else you can find an RSS feed for podcasts. It will be there as well. Just search Game On DC. We'll pop up. Joey, without further ado, let's go ahead and hit our first segment, which is, of course, the Washington Justice of the Overwatch League. Joey, it was a weekend to forget. I'll just throw it out there right now. It was a total of 6 maps between 2 teams. Yes, both were 3-0s, and unfortunately, both were not 3-0s in the direction favoring the Washington Justice. It was just a very, very tough week to start here in the Countdown Cup for the Justice.
Okay, we're going to have a little new segment here. Kind of like good cop, bad cop. We're going to call it Justice Fan and Analyst. From a Justice fan perspective, we obviously want to come out. We want to win 3-0. That's going to be the goal of going into any of these matches. Now, we need these wins to come out for the Countdown Cup standings. But on the analyst side, going into this weekend, if I'm being honest with myself, John, I did not see us doing great against the Outlaws. I thought we were going to come in there and do all right, but I assumed that was going to be either a loss or a very, very tight match between the two. For the LA Gladiators, I was expecting a win. I think this Justice team is definitely better than the Gladiators. Coming into that week, we played them previously a couple weeks ago, and we ended up going 3-2 against them with a win in favor of the Justice. This week, we just look like a completely different team and not in a good way. And part of that comes down to the meta, and we've talked about it on the co-streams before. When this team encounters the hero bans, even if it's a composition they've been used to playing a couple weeks ago, it seems to kind of throw them off kilter a little bit, trying to adjust to what other teams are bringing to the field. That seemed to be the biggest weakness once again this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. The meta changing with hero bans has always been an issue. We saw it in the June joust, like you said, it was tough. Going into it again now for the Showdown Cup, it just makes it even worse. Echo being banned is a huge hit. Lucio being banned, I don't think that hurts as much, but it definitely does take down some of your mobility. But that Sigma ban just really, really hurts, and it showed. The Outlaws, pulled the thing. And of course, the thing is when you take a DPS player and put him in at support to play Brig. We did the same thing with Tuba, but that was against the Gladiators. But unfortunately, Outlaws was an 0-3 in favor of the Outlaws, and the Gladiators, same thing. And Joey, the struggles continue on hybrid maps as well as escort maps. It's just, if I could get rid of those game modes and never play them again, I would. I'm just not happy with them. I don't think this Justice team plays well on them. And as we heard, last week from Supreme, is this is a Justice team that plays well in scrim for I'm doing editing on this so our cameras aren't as messed up as we do this. This is a Justice team that in scrims plays well on escort and hybrid, but for whatever reason when they're on the virtual stage, they can't replicate it. And it blew my mind when he said control maps and assault maps were the ones that they struggled on in scrims, but yet those are the ones they've been so dominant on. To me, it's starting to feel like it might be more of a mental thing than anything else going forward for this Justice team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a factor to consider as well. Some positives to take away from the Justice fan perspective. I think we looked better on the escort and hybrid maps this week. Yes, unfortunately, we did drop them going 0-3 and 0-3 in both these matches. But overall, we are pushing the payload farther. We were doing better defending against it, where in certain points, it took longer. And given one more team fight going our way for a couple different instances, especially against the Outlaws, that map could have easily gone our way. So we're right there. We're right on the cusp of having victory. Unfortunately, that cusp was just a little bit too far away in these matches as we did go 0-3. Some other takeaways, and you mentioned the Sigma. That's a big hit, especially to Fury, who was playing it phenomenally prior to this. The other one to touch on is the Echo for Assassin. Assassin's Echo was, I believe, arguably the best in the league, and I want to say statistically as well. So losing that hero has kind of thrown things a little bit off there. Now, Assassin plays a great Sombra as well, and Sombra now being in meta, we get to see that come back out. He's had some pretty good EMPs here and there that have won team fights, but in the end, it feels like he was more potent, at least, I'm going to say in the damage category on the Echo, and I think we're kind of lacking that a little bit now as well. The other thing I think to touch on here overall is just the look of the team composition. It feels like we're going to try a few different things. Toward the end of the Gladiators match, we did end up pulling out the old pharmacy comp, and that kind of flavors that assassin style, being able to float around the map like we saw with Echo. Maybe that's something we see coming into next week. Maybe we do see the Justice try to implement pharmacy or something else coming out, maybe like Mags Winston a little bit more like we previously saw. So for now, it was rough. The escort maps did not go in our favor. These matchups did not go in our favor. But as tough as it is to find good, positive takeaways, John, I think there are a few still in there.
Absolutely. And of course, Justice fans, no worries. Yes, they're 0-2, currently going into week 17 of the overall Overwatch League schedule here. It's going to be their final opportunity to try to qualify for the Showdown Cup. It's the good news is this: the field for the Showdown Cup is very mediocre. There are currently 6 teams tied for spots 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 for the qualifications for the Showdown Cup at 1-1. The Justice are 0-2. The Justice have a very favorable schedule. We're talking Toronto. Okay. We're talking the Defiant. We're talking Vancouver Titans. Canada is not having a good Overwatch League season. This is a great opportunity for the Justice to pull 2 wins here. If you're a Justice fan, I would almost say you should expect 2 wins here. With how bad Toronto is, with how bad Vancouver are, I would expect 2 wins here. I would expect a 2-2 record, and we do have to get a little help from other teams. But the great news is a lot of those 1-1 teams are going to be playing each other throughout the upcoming weeks. That's a good thing. That's going to put the Justice in good position. You have to win both games. That is a must. If you're going to qualify for the Countdown Cup, you have to qualify. You have to win both of these games in week 17 against the Defiant and against the Titans. There's no other way. You have to win both. You don't win both, there's no point in trying to find a way in, because I just don't see it happening.
Now, slight disclaimer, and we've seen bottom tier teams become good when those hero bans come out, so that could be the case here as well. We haven't really seen too much of Toronto or Vancouver since the ban system has come out. With that being said, John, they've gone through multiple situations of meta shifts so far this season, and neither team has really showed up too much. So with that being said, as Justice fans, as John said, these should be wins. This should be a 2-0 week coming up for the Justice. Anything less is not a good spot to be in, and the coaching staff's going to know that. Management's going to know that. Everyone wants these 2 wins, not just you guys as fans. They know they need to be in that form heading toward playoffs, whether that be the Countdown Cup playoffs or the full-on Overwatch League playoffs as well. So a 2-0 is what they're going to be aiming for. Obviously, every team aims to win every single week, but especially against these two teams, it's got to happen.
Absolutely. So again, that's Toronto coming up on the 7th. I believe that is Friday or Saturday. No, that is Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern time. Then the very next day on Sunday, the 8th, 6 p.m. against the Titans as well. And that is going to wrap up the Countdown Cup for the Washington Justice. So fans, definitely tune in, cheer the Justice on. They are going to need it. It's going to be a tight race here to qualify for that Countdown Cup, but we believe in them as everyone else does in the Justice family. Joe, let's go ahead and move on to our next segment as we inch closer and closer to our interview with King CJ. WizDG. I feel like I'm running out of things to say about Wizards District Gaming just because they're so good. Like, normally, like when a team does bad, you can sit here and you can pick apart everything they're doing. You can find something wrong and you can have like a 3-hour conversation about it. What do you say to a team that is, I believe, 18-4? 18-4. It's incredible. First in the East, first overall in the league. They have the most wins in the entire league as well. For a moment, T-Wolves Gaming, I believe, was hovering around there at 16 wins. So they're tied technically with the Hornets for second most wins here in the entire league. But WizDG, dominant performances. Last week, week 8, again, their season coming to an end as well. 2-0 against the Heat, 2-0 against the Mavs, and the Mavs was the Mavs felt a little bit like a trap game to me, Joey, because Dimes got traded in that big blockbuster trade up to Toronto. Reese Mode comes from Toronto down to Dallas. They don't know how the Mavs are going to line up. Fun fact, they have multiple shooting guards now on the Mavs. Nobody knew who was going to play point guard until 5 minutes before the game started. Everyone's running around going like, okay, who's actually going to play point? Reese Mode actually played shooting guard, his normal position. So, shocker. But yeah, it was just kind of interesting to find out who in the world was going to play that. No one knew what the matchup was. They did keep it close. Mavs kept it close in game 1. Game 2, they got absolutely blown out. WizDG is just on a whole different level.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's tough. What do you say to that team? Like you were saying, John, I think the biggest things are, hey, don't be overconfident. Yes, you're winning a lot now, but that challenge could come later down the road. And then stay hungry. But we also know the guys over on this team, and someone like Dave Fry is not going to get complacent. He knows he's good, but he knows he needs to keep working. And I think that mentality flows throughout that full organization. They're going to continue to strive for greatness. They might drop a game here or there, but it's going to be very rare and few between. They won the championship last year, and they're coming back with a hunger to do the same thing this year as well.
Joey, fun fact here, because I enjoy stats. Reese Mode has now played the Washington Justice, the Washington WizDG. There we go. Right game. Has played WizDG in 3 series so far this season. He is 0-6 against WizDG this year in the NBA 2K League. I would say that's a feels bad moment, but at the same time, I'm happy that he's unable to win against WizDG, because that's just even better for our boys over there. Coming up though,
sorry there, Reese Mode.
Sorry, Reese Mode, because I know you're totally watching this in Dallas right now. Hey, look, Reese Mode's a great guy. He plays incredibly well. It's just the Mavs team that is going through a lot of struggles right now. That's the main reason why they pulled off that blockbuster trade with Dimes sending him up to Toronto. Toronto, that team that was undefeated last year, looks like a completely different team in the very worst way possible. They're pulling the opposite of what they did last year right now, and it's not a pretty sight. But what is a pretty sight, Joey, is this week, 2 really good matchups here for WizDG coming on August 5th against Knicks Gaming. It's kind of funny. They ran on social media a prediction, and the head coach of Knicks Gaming responded. So it's kind of like, oh, so you're just going to go out and like show the whole world that you're obviously tuning in because you're game planning. That's fine. That's fine. Knicks Gaming, they're on a hot streak themselves. They're scoring quite a bit. Really good team. But I do see WizDG taking this series. I'm going to say it's a 2-0. Fun fact, they need 1 game. WizDG just needs to win 1 game in that Knicks matchup to qualify officially for the postseason. It's top 5 in each conference. They just need 1 win, and I definitely see that coming against the Knicks.
Yeah, and I mean, even looking further down up against the Gen.G Tigers, I think this is a 4-0 week for WizDG, if you ask me. I think they win both these series 2-0. They're the returning champions. They look phenomenal so far this season, and it goes back to what you're saying. What do we even tell them to improve at this point? I think it's just continue striving, get another 4-0 week here.
And I'm going to say this before we move on to the interview here real quick. Also, Be Rich. This is a guy who was the sixth man on the roster last year during the championship run. Only got a little bit of play time in the preseason and the turn tournament. The spring 16 tournament, and the preseason for WizDG last year. They draft LeBron to replace Reese DeGod, who gets drafted by the Lakers. And in the middle of the matchup against the Warriors, head coach Pat Crossan puts B. Rich in as the shooting guard. Now, he's a point guard by trade. Yeah, he can play shooting guard too, but they're two very different positions. Every single game, B. Rich has improved. He has become arguably the best sixth man in quotes here, because you talk to head coach Pat Crossan, he will tell you that the sixth man is just as important as the starting five. They are all leaders on that team. They all play a very specific role. B. Rich came in, and he is living that sixth man dream, if you will, earning his way into the starting five role, and he is absolutely crushing it. This man is averaging over 13 points a game now. He's coming up clutch from deep behind the arc. He is really coming in strong for this team, and they're looking good for that playoff push. It's all about that momentum, but enough can't be said about B. Rich here in that starting five for WizDG.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you broke it down an episode or two ago, but it just continues on. He's continuing to step in, continuing to fill that role. I feel like certain players throughout the league are looking for him to eventually falter, but so far really showing very few weaknesses in his ability to step in and fill that role well.
Nobody falters. Come on, not B. Rich. Oh, no, absolutely fantastic. But yes, both of those games coming up here for WizDG this week. On the 5th, 7 p.m. That is Thursday, then followed up on Saturday, 7 p.m. It is going to be a very long, action-packed weekend here for DMV Esports, so definitely tune in for that as well. Now, Joey, it is time for even more royalty to join Game On DC. We had the chance to interview King CJ. We teased this a little bit a couple weeks ago. The one thing is because he is currently out of country, he's in South Africa. We did have to pre-record this because there is that wicked 6-hour time difference, and there's no way we would ask him to be up at what was that, like 2 a.m. in the morning to do this. We're just not going to do that. That's cruel and unusual. But big thank you to King CJ for joining in, Joey. But there is one little caveat. There have been some updates that came out after this interview in regards to some of those competitions. So before we head into there, what are some things our viewers and listeners need to keep in mind here with this interview?
I don't know if you have a graphic made for this one, but unfortunately, so CJ originally got made as a competitor. He ended up qualifying for the FIFA E-Nations as well as the E-World Cup. Super excited. He's put in very hard work this season, even with everything going on with COVID last season and then into this season. He was able to be one of those competitors that showed constant improvements over the course of those 2 seasons and ended up qualifying for both of those representing the USA. And unfortunately, they have both been canceled indefinitely due to the ongoing pandemic.
Yes, they have. It was a very sad moment here as FIFA at FIFA E is their esports Twitter account, because God forbid anybody in FIFA gets it right. I would put eFIFA personally. That's just me, but who am I? But yeah, they tweeted out, absolutely heartbreaking for King CJ and all the other competitors going in there. Definitely does not take away from his accomplishments whatsoever. But just keep that in mind, as some of the questions are based upon these upcoming tournaments coming in. We're leaving them all in there because he gave really, really solid answers for everyone out there that wants to go on that pro gamer path. A look inside of how he mentally prepares for these events, how he stayed focused to qualify. All that's still very, very relative for everyone out there. So without further ado, Joey, let's kick it on over to the interview with King CJ. We are now joined by Mohamed King CJ Diop with DC United, the professional eMLS player for DC United, King CJ. Thank you so much for joining us. And I know this is a little bit of an international interview right now. You're currently in the home country of the 2010 World Cup of South Africa. How are you feeling over there?
It's quite fantastic to be back home, coming back, seeing family. So it's really nice. And thank you for having me too.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for taking the time out of your day. I know it's roughly a 6-hour time difference. We, when we're recording this, you're getting ready for dinner. We're hitting mid stride here back in the States on the East Coast. So let's go ahead and just start it off here. Let's have our listeners and viewers just get to know you a little bit better. Your background in video gaming. How did you get into video games? Was there a title that really drew you into the video game world?
I've always been passionate about football, soccer, as they call it in the U.S. So growing up, I was an avid Manchester United fan. I watched every single game without missing anyone. So I grew up watching football. And then once I knew I couldn't be a professional footballer, I had to shift that passion into another sector or section. And FIFA Esports was that for me. So I started playing on around FIFA 12 with my older brother. We were playing, scrimming, having our friends over to, of course, enjoy and have fun. And I saw that I had a better level than the friends I had around me. So I said, why not take this to the next level, compete, and see where it takes me? And yeah, that's basically the story behind it.
That's absolutely awesome, man. And I'll go ahead and hold Joey back. He's a big Manchester City fan, so I'll make sure that you two don't get into it there for that Manchester derby. Just out of curiosity, what FIFA title did you get started with? What year of FIFA?
Competitively or just like casually?
Both. We'll go with both.
Both?
Yeah.
So casually, I'd say around FIFA 12. So like I'd play here and there. I didn't play a lot. I used to be a Call of Duty player. I used to love playing that. But then that shifted to FIFA around FIFA 16, 17 especially. That's when I started to see that I had what it takes to compete. And FIFA 18, FIFA 19, that's when I started to like take it a bit seriously. But it became something real when I moved to the US in 2 years ago, FIFA 20, and that's when I started to take it a bit more seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. And just out of curiosity, recently EA came out with their new trailer for FIFA 22. Just from a pro standpoint here, I just want to get your takes on how FIFA as a video game has evolved since the time you came into the scene with it in FIFA 12, currently to what we're seeing right now in FIFA 21 and now going into FIFA 22. How do you think the game has changed and evolved over the years?
Obviously, this is quite a complicated topic because everybody has his own opinion and how the game plays for them. So, watching that trailer, of course, a point by my point of view, a pro point of view is they don't give a lot. Like you don't have a lot of info. So you see the gameplay, they add the new features, everybody says wow, but in a pro perspective, we need to have the game in our hand in order to judge and justify what's new, what isn't. And yeah. So gradually people will say FIFA's deteriorating, like it's not doing well. But as a pro, as a competitive player, like we cannot complain. We have to play the game we have. And that's the situation. So let's just hope the next game is a good one, a fun one that everyone enjoys, and hopefully that I do good at too.
No, absolutely. And you mentioned back when you started playing FIFA that you, over time you started to notice going up against friends and family members that your skill level just started to grow above theirs. When did you realize that this was a legitimate path for you to become a professional esport player in the FIFA scene?
I think when I entered my first tournament, I was 15. It was one of the biggest tournaments here in South Africa. I had a prize pool of over 100,000 rands. $100,000. I mean, across Xbox and PlayStation. So it was something that I was interested in. I wanted to test my level against other fellow competitors here. And I entered and I won my first $1,000 of gaming at 15. So back then it was a lot. It was like, wow, that is something. I would like to see where it can take me. So fast forwarding to when I moved into the US, I started to play competitively, and I got picked up by DC United after that tournament where we were all there. Had a fantastic tournament, and yeah, it just went from stride to stride there.
So you began to touch on it a bit there, but when you decided to sign with DC United for the MLS in late 2019, heading into the 2020 eMLS season, what were some of your thoughts going through your mind surrounding that decision, and what did it mean in regards to taking your FIFA play to the next level?
Obviously, like signing to the MLS is a big deal. It's the best league in North America, uncontestably the best league. They have the best players in the region, the people who've won multiple championships across the world. So obviously, it's the pinnacle of esports FIFA esports when it comes to North America. So going into it, of course, it's your first time. You're nervous because these people have been there, they've done that. You're kind of a rookie coming into it, so you are a bit nervous. But once you get into it, once everything starts and kicks off, the nerves just fade away, and you just go with the flow.
Absolutely, and you have done just that. So heading into that first season, the 2020 season, it got off to a hot start. It was looking pretty good overall, and then COVID-19, the pandemic, ended up hitting, causing chaos in a number of people's lives, including athletes like yourself. How did the pandemic affect the eMLS schedule and the mentality of you and your peers within the scene?
It was a tough pill to swallow because obviously we had the events, everything was planned out, in-person events. We were all going to the events, enjoying, competing, and mostly experiencing something that a lot of people don't get to experience. Going to LAN events, going to different stadiums, locations, and all that stuff. So it was a tough blow because it was all looking promising. We were getting closer to the MLS Cup where everything is to play for. And just to hear that everything is going to be suspended / canceled, later known canceled, was a bit of a bummer. So it did take a huge toll on most players, and it was hard to adjust.
Absolutely. And we did see some players during that time turn to stuff like streaming more often or finding ways to do more interviews. Did you fill that time with anything, or did you mainly fill it with practice to improve your game?
I did start. That's when I actually took streaming to the next level because I thought this was an opportunity since everyone is staying at home that we would just start streaming and see how to grow my fan base, the DC United fan base, when it came to esports, and we were finding ways to host international friendlies, trying to replicate the real sport, posting starting 11s, actually doing the real build up to a real game on the virtual pitch. So we tried those concepts, and that's what we filled it with.
Absolutely love the innovation that you and DC United came up with there. Another thing that's really stood out to us, CJ, is just your constant hard work and improvement throughout the scene. After finishing near the middle of the pack in the final 2020 eMLS standings, you continued to improve from event to event, finding yourself in a top 3 spot in the 2021 standings and qualifying for large-scale international events. What are some of the factors that encourage you to continue improving, and how do you go about making the necessary adjustments to do so?
The first year, obviously, like everything you do, the first time you do something, it either goes perfect or it just doesn't go the way you plan. Last year's the first MLS year, 2021, it didn't go to plan to my standards. I knew I could do a lot better than what I did. And being in my first year in the US and my first year competing, I didn't know the style, how people played. I didn't know how things worked. So I think that kind of affected my game, and in a negative way, of course. And then this year, brand new year, school shifted online. So I had a lot more time to practice, a lot more time to devote into this. So that's how I picked up. I improved. I trained every day, kept the consistent training sessions, and it got me to where I am. And I'm so grateful to being now one of the best, if not the best, in North America.
So without giving too much away, can you talk us through like what a day in a training session looks like for you by chance?
So I wake up like everybody does. I take my shower, I have breakfast, everything. I have school, which is the priority for me. I have to go to school every day, do my work. So let's say for around 8 or 10 to 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, I'm working, studying, and all that stuff. And then once I'm done with that, I go chill. And around 6 p.m. is when I normally play. I play because most of the people also they have work, school, all that stuff. They come back home and they boot on to start training, practicing. And I would just sit there, practice nonstop till I feel like I'm hungry. Then I go and have dinner eventually, and then I come back and I play and I play until I just feel tired. Like it's something I really wanted to do. I really wanted to staple my name into the history of FIFA esports, and I just went in head down and went straight for the goal.
And as far as those training sessions go, are you playing against players in like solo queue, or are you ending up doing more of like the practice drills to work on mechanics?
Um, FIFA's a pretty unique esport. It's a 1v1 esport that everyone knows. So you just hop on, you message like a few of the pro players, competitive players around the scene, asking them, you want to play friendly? Yep. We set it up, a best of two. We play. Win, lose, it doesn't really matter. It's training. At the end of the day, it's all about improving your mechanics, your tactics, and practice different scenarios, losing, down late, down early, and those shifts during the game. So, yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you mentioned that your ultimate goal here is to make a lasting impression, to make history in the e-football scene, really, and in the world of esports for soccer. And you're already doing that. I mean, you're 20 years old. You're turning 21 later this year in September, and you're the only American to qualify for the FIFA E World Cup. And you know, it was announced on the 4th of July. I don't think it gets much more patriotic than that. Talk to me a little about how does it feel to represent the red, white, and blue going in to the FIFA E World Cup, and that has to be such a great honor for you.
It is. It is a great honor. Not a lot of people can say they've qualified for a World Cup, and it's something that I've dreamed of in my life ever since I started playing FIFA competitively. Every time you tune in at this stage of the year and you watch the World Cup, that's the one thing most eFootball athletes do. So it was honestly a dream come true. I didn't cry, of course I wouldn't, but I was very proud. And I'm still proud to this day that I'll be one of the 32 players that'll be in London to compete for that World Championship.
Just out of curiosity, like going into that, do you change anything in the terms of how you prep going into such a major international tournament like that versus something like more of a domestic league play in eMLS? Is it just because it's on a bigger stage, or how does that change anything in your prep style?
So this is the first international tournament in a long time. As you guys know, LAN events haven't been happening because of COVID, obviously. So going into it, I wouldn't change anything. It's worked till this point, and if it doesn't, it wasn't meant to be. So we're just gonna keep going the way we did things, and hopefully it'll be the championship. When we come back, we'll get the championship.
Absolutely, it is a tough field, and we are super honored that that you representing DC United and the U.S. have qualified for the E World Cup. It's such it's so awesome. You know, we've said it before, we'll say it again. Joe and I are such massive football fans. You know, every Saturday morning you can find both of us up at the crack of dawn watching our European teams. I know, you know, I go to a lot of DC United games as well. Just, you know, there's nothing better in the world, maybe video games, But football is right up there with it as well. So that's really awesome to see you qualify there, and we're just so honored that you're a part of the DMV community, representing us as well in the eWorld Cup. But you didn't stop there. Okay, qualifying for the eWorld Cup, was just the tip there, because you also are selected to represent the U.S. soccer. I'd call them the Federation, but I feel like they keep changing their name every other 3 years. But you'll be joining Fiddle to represent the U.S. in the E-Nations Cup coming up in August as well, drawn into Group B with, I don't know, countries like Indonesia, Belgium, Argentina, Israel, and Germany. Absolutely crazy. Your August is about to be very, very busy coming up here.
Indeed. It was a very, very dramatic tournament, that one. To be selected into the national team, it was a very dramatic tournament as I lost my first game into the knockouts. Let me explain the whole story. So I was first. I wasn't in the 7th picked by the national team to skip through the first tournament to be into the knockouts. So I had to play an open bracket tournament with more than 200 players, 200 Americans, trying to achieve this goal to become the national team rep. So I played through that tournament. I won that tournament, and then I was placed in as the last seed heading into the bracket. I lost to the eMLS Cup winner, who put me into the loser brackets. So I had to win the whole loser bracket to then reset the final bracket to win it again eventually. So that was when, honestly, where the season kick-started for me, and when I said, all right, you're on the level now. You've made a bit of noise. It's time to capitalize on it. And that's exactly what I did. And I'm so grateful. I can call it luck. I can call it anything else, but it happened. So let's just live in the moment.
Hey, no, absolutely. Luck is when skill and preparation meet together. I mean, that is such a great underdog story as well, being able to run a lower bracket all the way back up. I mean, tell me something that doesn't scream esports than a lower bracket run to the finals to qualify for something absolutely massive. I love those kinds of stories. As an esport fan, I love watching that as well. It is just it's so dramatic and just so energetic when it happens. It just draws you in. So yeah, I mean, I can imagine that as the player in that moment, your adrenaline is pumping. You're getting closer and closer to that redemption, if you will. And then boom, now you're representing the U.S. national team in the E-Nations Cup, and it's just so awesome that you're in the eWorld Cup, you're in the E-Nations Cup. You're right here out of the DMV representing DC United. I mean, you're pretty much like a rock star in the gaming world in the DMV. You do realize that, right?
It hasn't kicked in like that. Well, I just try to do my best, and I just try to represent as much as I can. I'm very harsh with myself when I lose. When I lose, I'm my biggest critic. Everyone can criticize me, yes, but I'm the biggest critic of myself. And when I'm doing well, I'm just grateful. I just don't know what to say, honestly.
Absolutely. So everyone in the DMV, if you're not doing so already, give my man King CJ a follow on Twitter at KingCJ0 as well. Follow along with his amazing journey into the eWorld Cup and the E-Nations Cup coming up in August as well. Mohammed, thank you so much again for joining us. Is there anything that you want to say to the DMV area or just really the country and all the people around the world that are following your journey into the eWorld Cup and into the E-Nations Cup?
I'd firstly like to thank everyone for the support. I've seen every message. I've replied to every message. I really appreciate you all supporting me and pushing me towards that next level. And I really hope that this summer, whether it's the World Cup, whether it's the E-Nations Cup, we'd bring a trophy back home. And I really hope that I can make you all proud. And never let anyone tell you that your dream is not possible. Keep thriving, and you'll get there eventually.
Absolutely. Again, Muhammad Diab, King CJ, thank you so much for joining us here on Game on DC. and we'll have to wrap back up with you as soon as your busy August is done for a couple follow-ups.
Indeed. No worries.
What an amazing interview with King CJ. Joey, super humble guy. Especially, when I was 20, not that humble, not whatsoever. If I ran the lower bracket at a tournament to qualify for something as big as the E-World Cup or Nations Cup.
E-Nations, you had it right.
E-Nations, yeah, whatever. It would be hard not to be bragging and be like, look at what I just did. Like, that is such an incredible feat. And in esports, as an esport fan, you love watching lower bracket runs, especially when they end with a championship being hoisted at the end or a major qualification like this. It was so awesome to get to talk to King CJ. We've talked with him before. Great having him on the show, Joey, but just an absolutely humble guy. And I couldn't be happier to have King CJ represent the DMV for DC United.
Yeah, absolutely. The humility is huge, but also the hardworkingness. I mean, when you look at him from last season, he finished around middle of the pack. He put in the hard work, John. He was able to come back this season, ended up toward the top of the standings, I believe top 2, if I remember correctly. So very, very strong season overall from him. And then heading into summer, heading into these qualifiers, he just continued to work hard, and it just continued to show through as he once again qualified for these, which, again, in case you guys didn't catch it before the interview, these events are now canceled due to everything going on with the pandemic, which is such a bummer. But we know CJ, we know he's going to keep working hard, and we know he'll earn his spot once again.
Absolutely. It's just been absolutely incredible following his journey. But Joey, the good news is that we have an action-packed weekend full of esports for the DMV teams. The bad news, unfortunately, is that it's the end of the show. I know. I don't want it to end, Joey, but that will do it for today's episode of Game on DC. Just a reminder, if you do enjoy Game on DC, we want to hear from you. Leave us a review on your podcatcher of choice, whether it be Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, whatever podcatcher you listen to. If they allow a rating, please do leave us a rating and a review. We do appreciate it. And don't forget to subscribe and follow Game on DC on social media. It's at Game on DC. It's super simple. Just right there, at Game on DC. All the social media right there for you. So you can do there. Joey, where else can our listeners go to follow and chat with us here on Game on DC?
Absolutely. DMV listeners, head on over to Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram and find us at Game on DC. In addition to that, you can follow us on YouTube and Twitch at the OTN Media channel. OTN Media on YouTube, and on Twitch, it's twitch.tv/OTN Media. Last but not least, if you're hitting us up on socials and you don't want to just at the account in general, you can also use the hashtag GoDC as well.
All right, so a little bit of an extended break here before next Game on DC, as we have some traveling that we're going to get done out of the way. But make sure you follow the social media accounts, because we'll keep you up to date with everything going on here in the DMV for esports. So make sure you tune in for our next episode. It's going to be Tuesday, August 17th, 8 p.m. as we continue to cover the esports news here in the DMV. Make sure you do your ears and eyes a favor. Hit that sub button here on Twitch and the notification so you know when the next episode of Game on DC is ready for your listening and viewing pleasures. We will catch you all on the 17th. Enjoy the rest of your week, and as always,
Game on DC.